Have you ever felt that sharp, shooting pain, the kind that makes just walking or even sitting down feel like an impossible task? Well, you might be one of the millions dealing with something called sciatica. Today, we're going to dig into exactly what it is, what's causing it, and most importantly, what you can do to get some relief.
You know what I'm talking about, right? That shocking, radiating pain that just zaps you from your lower back, through your hip, and all the way down your leg. If that's hitting close to home for you, it is so important to know you are definitely not alone in this.
Okay, so let's break it down. What is this pain, really? What's going on inside our bodies?
All right, the first thing you absolutely have to know is this. Sciatica isn't actually a disease. It's more like your body's alarm system going off. It's a symptom, a signal that something's bugging or, pressing on your sciatic nerve. And get this, that's the longest and biggest nerve in your whole body.
Now, how it feels can be totally different for everyone. For some, it's this dull ache, but for others, it's a really sharp, burning feeling. You might also get that weird pins and needles sensation, or even some numbness or muscle weakness. But here's the real giveaway. It almost always just hits one side of your body.
Which, of course, leads us to the million-dollar question, why is this happening? What's actually putting all that pressure on the sciatic nerve? Let's dig into the root causes.
Okay, the number one reason, the most common culprit, is what's called a herniated disc. And honestly, the best way to picture this is to think of those little discs between your vertebrae as tiny jelly donuts. Seriously, when everything's healthy, they're the perfect cushion. But when a disc herniates, that soft center, the jelly, kind of bulges or leaks out and puts pressure right on the sciatic nerve. And yep, that pressure is exactly what sets off all that pain.
But a herniated disc isn't the only thing that can cause it. Sometimes you get an overgrowth of bone. They call it a bone spur. And that can literally poke into the nerve space. Or you could have something called spinal stenosis, which just means the main channel for your spinal cord has gotten narrower. Either way, the result is the same. That sciatic nerve gets crowded and pinched.
So you might be wondering, what puts me at a higher risk for this? Well, age is a big factor. Just the natural wear and tear on our spines over time makes it more common. Extra weight also adds a lot more stress to your spine. Your job can play a part too, whether it's heavy lifting or just sitting all day long. And surprisingly, even something like diabetes can be a risk factor because it can lead to nerve damage.
Okay, so let's say the symptoms are sounding familiar, and maybe you tick a few of those risk boxes. How does the doctor actually confirm what's going on? Let's walk through how they diagnose it.
Usually, it all starts with a simple physical exam. Your doctor's going to check your muscle strength, your reflexes. They'll probably have you do a few specific movements, like lifting your leg while you're lying down, just to see what makes the pain flare up. And if they need a clearer picture, well, that's when they'll bring in the imaging tests.
And you can think of these tests as different tools for a detective. An X-ray? That's perfect for spotting bone problems, like those bone spurs we mentioned. But an MRI, that gives this incredibly detailed picture of the soft tissues, so it's the go-to for finding a herniated disc. Then there's something called an EMG, which is super specific. It actually measures the electrical signals in your nerves to see if they're being pinched.
All right, let's get to what you really want to know. How do you start feeling better? What are the solutions here? Let's cover the whole range of treatments, from things you can do at home all the way up to surgery.
And the good news is there's a really clear path for treating sciatica. It's not just one thing, it's a layered approach. It usually kicks off with some medication and physical therapy. If the pain is stubborn, steroid injections are an option. And then, only as a last resort, we talk about surgery.
So if you get hit with a sudden, really intense bout of pain, the first line of defense is super simple. Just rest and maybe apply a hot compress. Now, this isn't a permanent fix, of course, but it can give you some much-needed relief in the moment while you're figuring out what to do next with your doctor.
Physical therapy is absolutely crucial for recovery, and it usually starts with really simple stretches like this one. This is the piriformis stretch, and it's a classic for a good reason. It targets a deep muscle in your glutes that can get super tight and actually press on the sciatic nerve. So doing this gentle stretch can bring some real direct relief.
And here's another version that gets at that same muscle group, just from a slightly different angle. The most important thing to remember with any of these stretches is to be gentle. You're aiming for a nice, mild stretch. You should never be pushing into pain.
When it comes to medication, doctors usually attack the problem from two different directions. First, you've got anti-inflammatories to bring down the swelling right around the nerve.
And second, they might give you muscle relaxants to help ease up those painful muscle spasms that tend to go along with sciatica. That really helps to break that awful pain cycle.
So that brings us to surgery. And I want to be really clear, this is considered a last resort. It's only really on the table when all the other treatments just haven't worked, or in those very rare, severe cases where someone might lose control of their bladder or bowels. The goal of the surgery is super straightforward. A surgeon goes in and physically removes whatever's pinching that nerve, be it a piece of a disc or a bone spur.
Okay, so what does the future look like? What's the long-term outlook? Obviously, the goal for everyone is to get back to a pain-free, healthy life. So let's talk about what that road to recovery and prevention actually looks like.
Now, if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this number, because it's incredibly hopeful. Between 80 and 90% of people with sciatica recover completely without needing surgery. In fact, for about half the people who get it, the symptoms can actually go away on their own in about 6 weeks. So how do you stay on top of this and prevent it from coming back? It all boils down to building a stronger, more supportive body. We're talking about simple but powerful lifestyle changes, exercising regularly, really paying attention to your posture, and making sure your core and back muscles are strong. All of that is just so key for your long-term spine health.
Look, understanding what's causing your pain is always the first, most powerful step. You now have a kind of roadmap for how to manage it and how to build a stronger back for the future. Taking back your life from this kind of pain, it really does start with one single movement, one choice. So the only real question left is the one you see right here. What's your first step going to be? Thanks so much for watching.